I'm now speaking from a different room in the same underground location. Um, so after some thought, I decided that this will be the last um, sort of set of installments. I want to talk about the Paul section, but I want to do it by featuring just three distinct moments, three things that Sebald does. And I think that'll put us in a very good position to go interrogating the final two, uh, whatever you call them, mini biographies, chapters, segments of this work on Monday. What I would like you to do for Monday is, of course, read the two remaining sections and do so with an eye out for the things that I/we have been talking about the last several days. Um, so I want to just jump right into the Ambrose section, and then we can talk about some of the bigger issues, the ones I was trying to raise at the end of yesterday's segment about, is this um, a single work of art, or is this somehow a collection of fragments of some kind, of pieces of some kind? How exactly do we consider this book? Um, and to what degree or in what ways does the ending that Sebald provides us close down the book in some way? And to what degree does that ending leave things open? All right, so those will be ultimately our wrap-up questions. There'll be plenty sort of along the way, not least of which is, what's Nabokov doing here? But we will try to at least begin our conversation by identifying in the remaining two sections those techniques Sebald employs that ought to give us some feeling of vertigo or uncertainty. So to talk about the Paul section, I want to pick up on page 29. So this is, there are a couple of pages that precede this, but to my mind, this is really the beginning of the Sebaldian errand of considering Paul Bereiter as a subject. And at the top of the page, having top of page 29, having already identified who he was, what his importance to the narrator was, and the fact, of course, that he was important, we get the following. And so belatedly, I try to get closer to him, to imagine what his life was like in that spacious apartment on the top floor of Lurchenmüller's old house, which had once stood where the present block of flats is now, amidst the array of green vegetable patches and colorful flower beds, in gardens where Paul often helped out in the afternoon. I imagined him lying in the open air of his balcony where he would often sleep in the summer, his face canopied by the hosts of the stars. I imagined him skating in winter alone on the fish ponds in Moosbach. I imagined him stretched out on the track. As I pictured him, he had taken off his spectacles and put them on the ballast stones by his side. The gleaming bands of steel, the crossbars of the sleepers, the spruce trees on the hillside above the village of Altstaden, the arc of the mountains he knew so well, were a blur before his short-sighted eyes, smudged out in the gathering dusk. At last, as the thunderous sound approached, all he saw was a darkening grayness and, in the midst of it, needle-sharp, the snow-white silhouettes of the three mountains. Okay, so what we have here is a fairly conventional novelistic approach to character, or perhaps a slightly less than conventional approach to a subject in nonfiction, but I would also say a pretty conventional approach to trying to understand co-experience, experience by proxy, the final minutes of some lost loved one's life. Pretty normal, pretty typical, but then the thread is pulled on it, right? And it's pulled on in a particular way. Such endeavors to imagine his life and death did not, the narrator tells us, as I had to admit, bring me any closer to Paul, except at best for brief emotional moments of the kind that seemed presumptuous to me. It is in order to avoid this wrongful trespass that I have written down what I know about Paul Bereiter. So the conventional approach is explored. In fact, in certain ways, I think it's done pretty well. If this had been presented in a workshop, these pages would probably be applauded, or that long passage would probably be applauded. but it won't do for this narrator. The narrator is interested in something else, uh, in something that can't be reached by way of imagining these details, this sort of personal moment, these private experiences of these moments, and in fact considers them presumptuous and a wrongful trespass. Um, he's distrustful. He's suspicious. He's maybe even a little disdainful of those conventional approaches. He's at the very least not convinced that his own capacity to imagine is going to bring him to the kind of experience of intimacy that he looks for. And I would say, I think by extension, the kind of experience of intimacy that novels and certain kinds of nonfiction writing, biographies, for instance, are also designed to bring us to. He doesn't think it works, and on top of that, he thinks it's somehow wrong. It's more than just failed. It's also a violation of some kind. Now, I happened to meet him about 6 or 7 weeks before he died, and I asked him about his first-person narrators, in particular, why a first-person narrator for each of these pieces. In fact, for all four of the really significant books that he did. But those characters are never identified, either as Sebald himself or as some narrative persona. And they are never actors in the story, except as kinds of sleuths who, as in the case of the emigrants, go looking to pull together information that they think might bring them to some feeling of intimacy, or bring us to a feeling of intimacy. His answer was as follows. He said, after the atrocities committed by my countrymen, he said, in the middle of the last century, I no longer trust any pose of omniscience. So there's a fundamental distrust that's articulated here, but is definitive of Sebald's entire approach, and also regarding his outlook on the whole matter of writing. That distrust is disdainful of, and in some cases is angry with, any effort to suggest I know something that's beyond, basic epistemological limits. I can't know something. I can't know an experience that isn't mine. I can't know I can't claim to have knowledge of things that aren't understandable, that exist in a private realm, for instance, in the case of Paul Bereiter, or for some other reason or beyond the limits of subjectivity. Further, he goes on to say that, went on to say that a narrator, right, not a writer, but a narrator, has a moral obligation to identify his sources. So this will bring us at least into contact with the kind of work that he does at much greater length in the Paul section than in the Selwyn section, in which other people are the source of the information that the narrator then relays to us. So that's on the table now, right? Those observations, that kind of queasiness he has is on the table, and it's one of the things we'll pick up on Monday. Hang on, I'll cover the other two in a moment.